Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, we left off just talking quickly about wobblers, different sizes, different weights. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you here, and these come right out of the package from Salmon. Now, again, I have been told that there's been either a shortage or they're hard to find right now. I have not confirmed that one way or the other, but at the very least, these are called the Big Dog. It's just a larger size of Salmon wobbler. Of course, you got all kinds of different versions that are out there. One of my favorites all time is a Clancy. These can be hard to find, but at the very least, one of the things with the Clancy is that it's super easy to determine the thicker version, because they do mark them out very, very clearly. But, so here's 3 different setups of how you can slow these wobblers down, one of which is just a bead chain behind it and a relatively heavy hook, treble hook. I do only run trebles. I've played that game with single side wash. I get it. This is just where my comfort zone is. But with that bead chain back there, that adds a little bit of weight. So in the heavier currents, you can get this to run correctly, which sometimes is just the perfect time. Here's one that I did alter myself. This is just a swivel in between the hook and the body. It's a little bit lighter than, say, this particular one here with the bead chain. So you're adding just a little bit different weight, and it doesn't take much to change things, okay? If you add a bigger hook, that is really what changes things a lot, because you're putting that weight in the back, and it'll slow that wobble down in heavier current. And then here's one straight out of the package with nothing, no extra rigging at all, although this is one of my most productive Big Dogs. It's just straight out of the package with just the split ring and the treble hook. So all 3 of those are actually going to run a little bit different, okay, all because of the weight. So kind of keep that in mind. So it's a good idea to have more than, say, just one version of a wobbler. Another thing before I move on from wobbler talk is, don't forget this, different ways to fish them. Now, several years ago, many years ago now, and I don't know if Cameron actually came up with this or not, or if it was just something that he perfected, Mr. Cameron Black, of course, but the 3x3x3 rig. Typically, like this one here, which you can see I've got a little bit of line already tied onto that one. And what that is a 6-foot leader and a 6-foot dropper, just all wound up together, so that all I got to do is just undo it, click it right onto the rod, and go. So that's a 6x6, okay? There's a 5x5 setup, which is a 5-foot leader and a 5-foot dropper. You just never want to have your leader longer than your dropper. You can have a longer dropper than leader. Depending on sometimes the current and where you are, we'll run up to an 8-foot dropper and 6-foot leaders. It just depends on what you're seeing. But one of my favorite ways to go is the 3x3x3, which is just that float on your leader. This would be going to your rod tip or your main line, and then your wobbler is down here at the bottom. And that float in the middle, even though it's not that big, floats everything up, and it changes the action of that wobbler. Especially effective, at least in my opinion, when the water is relatively slow and you want to make sure that that wobbler is staying up in the water column. This helps out with that quite a bit, and then you can really kind of change things up with different wobblers to get different actions with that 3x3 setup. The float's a Salmon float. You can get them at Fisherman's, of course. And the only thing I got to show here, and this blew my mind, this is my lucky float, so to kind of get that out of the way. Years ago, when we first started getting real into the 3x3x3 setup, is that we were getting phantom bites, you know, bites where your rod would just get throttled, just wham! What the heck? How does it not get hooked up? Well, it turns out the Chinook are coming up and they're actually biting the float. It's a super weird phenomenon, at least in my opinion. You can see I do have a bead here to protect that swivel midway down. But yeah, so you might find that you get some interesting bites that just don't hang with this 3x3x3 setup. And sometimes it's with them eating, I believe it or not, they're biting that float. Because when it is in the water, it does kind of undulate weird. It's just the weirdest thing. Maybe somebody should be making a bait that looks similar to a float in the water. I don't know. All right, so we're going to cut out real quick. I want to come back. I want to talk about plugs, back trolling, and on the anchor. One of the most old school ways to target fall Chinook. in the Columbia and a number of different places. We'll be back with that in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective. And by North American Metals Incorporated, first choice for all your metal roofing and siding needs.